Hello, hello, hello. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Come on, come all, come big, come small. Listen, usually, when you see me here, you usually see me with my partner in crime, Chaun. Welcome to episode 10 of our series. Episode 10, I am titling Candy Proposed. Before we get into the details of the episode, let me start by saying this. Chaun's not here tonight. She's not feeling well. She's having some pain in her stomach. So I told her, I said, girl, I could tell this story frontwards and backwards. Okay, Myrtle? So I told her, I said, let me call the best friends. Let me tell the story. And then you can rejoin us perhaps tomorrow for the next story in our series. So before we get into tonight's conversation, let's recap for those of you guys who may have missed it, or maybe you forgot where we left off the last time we were sitting here on the couch yesterday. So yesterday we told you the story. We told you about Chaun and I being on the outs. So at this point, we have been together maybe a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, right? My timeline is fuzzy. So we have been together for a while. At this point, we're on the outs. I started dating this guy. We were dating each other very seriously. And at some point, I realized throughout our dating that he wanted to take the relationship to the next level. He was talking proposal. He was talking moving in. He was talking marriage. And I knew deep down inside that wasn't where I felt like the relationship should go. So, although difficult, I broke it off with him. And Chaun and I were still living together. I broke it off with him and was single for a while. So that's where we left off yesterday. During this time, I'm single, Chaun's single, and we're still living together, and Chaun is still trying to get me back. So over the next several months, this is where we left off, and this is where we're picking up today, okay? If you picking up what I'm putting down, let me know in the comments. If you picking up what I'm putting down, let me know in the comments. So this is where we left off. So over the next several months, I'm getting past, breaking up with him. I'm starting to really self-evaluate. I'm looking at Chaun. She's working on getting me back. All of the things are happening. So gradually we start to rebuild the trust that was broken, right? And so we go, let's say 6 to 9 months with no issues. Nothing happens. We start to, rebuild the trust. We get our relationship back on track. We're doing well. By this point, we're both working together at State Farm, but on the corporate side. And Chaun is working a later shift. We both worked in a department that stayed open till 7 p.m. And so this particular day, it's a summer day. Chaun is working the later shift and she has to work until 7. I got off work at 4. Now it's just the two of us. So traditionally on days like this, I would go grab something to eat after work, maybe go to the gym, wash my car, just kind of piddle around and do stuff to kill time until she got off of work. This particular day is much the same. So I'm moving around, beautiful summer day. I remember it like it was yesterday. So that Nissan Maxima, that amazing car that I told you I was in love with, I'm driving that car. I got the sunroof open. I'm listening to my music. And I remember, I think, going to get something to eat and going to the car wash. And I'm headed back towards the area of town where our apartment was. But instead of me getting on the expressway to go through town, I ended up going through town and going past one of the newer subdivisions. And it was directly across the street from where our friends lived, okay? So I'm driving through like this newer neighborhood. They're building houses. You know, it's an area where a lot of like first time home buyers, you know, move over, newer, like younger couples move over there, start families, etc. So they're building houses left and right. They got a couple of houses for sale. And I'm like, oh my God, our sorority sister and her, well, at the time I wasn't a Zeta, so let me take that back. Our friends, Chaun's sorority sister and her husband live across the street. We're extremely close to them. They live in the other subdivision directly across the street from this one. So I'm driving around, y'all. So I get to this house, right? And I'm like, oh, it's a for sale sign outside of this house. And I slow down. Now, I'm the only person in the car. So I get to this house and I slow down and I'm just kind of staring at the house. Sunroof open, beautiful summer day, bumping my music, you know, kind of thing. And I noticed that there was a for sale sign in the yard, but there was also one of those, it wasn't just a regular for sale sign, it was one of those for sale signs that had the bottom piece attached to it where you could pull out the flyer for the realtor that had like the listing information, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what's the price of the property, all of the details, right? So I decide, it's almost like God was talking to me in that moment, right? So I leave the car, I put the car in park. I leave the car running. Music still on. This is back before there was keyless entry, so the key is still in the ignition. So I get out the car to go across the street to grab a flyer. I grab the flyer, I run across the street back to the car. I pull the handle on the car door, the car don't open. It's locked. Now I know when I got out the car to go across the street to get the flyer, I know I didn't lock that car. How did the car lock? Right? How did the car lock? I don't know what happened. So at first I start to panic, but it's almost like God said, turn around and look at that house. Turn around and look at that house. So music still going, sunroof open. I know that the car is running. I'm over here, my cell phone, everything is in the car. I can't even call nobody. So I turn around and I look at the house. And it's almost like God said, just sit and look at the house. I looked at the house and I was kind of leaned up against the car. And I could almost hear the Spirit of God say, ask for what you want. So I remember saying, God, I want this house. I want to be a homeowner, but more specifically, I want this house. I want this house, right? I have never been in this house. I see pictures on the flyer. I see the price, but the price don't mean anything to me because I'm used to renting. So $100 and something thousand, I don't know what that compute to. And we hadn't even talked about really buying a house. So we don't even know if we qualify for the house, if we got enough money to put down on the house. We don't know anything. So I might have been turning around looking at that house for every bit of maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Not a long time. But there was a calm and a peace that came over me while I was looking at that house. And after I looked at that house and I asked God for that house, I turned back around and I tried the handle again. Now, when I tried the handle on the car again, I had an expectation that that door was going to open. There was no fear in me anymore. There was no anxiousness. There was no anxiety. I knew without a shadow of doubt in my mind that that car door was going to open, and it opened like that. I got in the car and I pulled off. And I remember going back home. And I remember when Chaun got off work, she came in, she was tired. We sat down, we talked. And I remember explaining this to her. And I remember her just giving me this deer in headlight look. But Chaun and I have always had the relationship where I lead and she usually, not always, but she usually will trust my judgment and follow and go with it. But Chaun was like, girl, I never really want to own a house. What's wrong with us renting? We got this new apartment. We're the only people who've lived here. We got the washer and dryer in here. Like everything, it's just the two of us. Everything is fine. Like, why do we need to buy a house? So I'm telling her, I'm like, well, equity. You know, we talking and this, that, and the third. Long story short, best friends, within probably a couple of days, we had contacted the realtor. We didn't know anything about the home buying process. But instantly I knew if this man is representing the seller, I don't want him representing us, because then to me it'll be a conflict of interest. You're going to lean towards them because you want a bigger commission, so you're going to want the price higher. So I said, well, let me go out and find somebody else. I find us a realtor. Now, usually, especially nowadays, they're not going to let you put no offer on no house unless you got an approval letter. We didn't have no approval letter. We still was able to put an offer in on that house. We were in competition with other people that had also put offers in on that house. Within a few days, we had already got our offer accepted on the house. We put the money down on the house as a, what they say, earnest money. We had given a check for our earnest money. We had figured out that we qualify for the house. We were trying to figure out how to come up with the money for the down payment on the house. Things just started moving because I asked and I believed. So that was our experience, probably 6 to 9 months after me breaking up with my ex-boyfriend. Chaun and I are doing well. We go through the process, we buy the house, right? We have an amazing housewarming. Both families come, all of the things happen. So then comes the proposal, okay? Then comes the proposal. So we're in the house. This is another, let's say 6 to 9 months. So now we're even further down the line. Everything is still going very well for us. You know, my trust has been rebuilt. Chaun and I are on cloud 9. One day I'm at work and I'm talking to my coworker, and I think for many women, many feminine women, when they think of marriage and they think of proposals, you think of it from an emotional standpoint. You think, I found my person, I'm in love, all of the things. For me as a masculine woman, I thought of marriage a little bit different. I said, this is somebody that I love, this is somebody that I trust, and this is somebody that I feel like will be good for my future. So I made a choice that the obvious next step would be marriage. And it was a decision. So one day I'm at work, I'm talking to my coworker, and I said, my coworker knew Chaun or knows Chaun. So I'm talking to my coworker, I said, Melanie, I think I'm ready to propose. She said, really? I said, yeah. So within a couple of weeks, I call our sorority sister, well, Chaun's sorority sister, because remember I told you before, I wasn't a Zeta yet. So I called Chaun's sorority sister, our friend Shamari, who happens to be Kennedy and Caleb's godmother, okay? I call Shamari. I say, hey, friend, I say, I really think I'm ready to propose to Chaun. I'm ready to ask your girl for her hand in marriage. I need to go ring shopping. You, her friend, you live down here in Bloomington, close by us. When can I get on your calendar? Because I want you to come with me to go ring shopping. We meet up, we go ring shopping. I pick out a ring, I'm ready to go, right? So in my mind, so I got the ring. In my mind, I'm like, okay, well, girl, you can't just be sitting on the edge of the bed and just ask her to marry you. Like you have to plan this, right? So with us living in Bloomington, we're 2.5, almost 3 hours from Chicago, which is almost 3 hours from her family. Now, I've heard all these horror stories about people doing proposals where there's a lot of people involved, there's family members, there's friends, and all this. And I just, in my mind, I was like, well, don't do it like that, because, girl, all it takes is somebody to be late, somebody's lips to be loose, and let the cat out the bag. Like, don't set up no kind of proposal where it involves a lot of people. But because I'm a traditional person, I said, well, Chaun's father's deceased, so you can't ask him for her hand in marriage. But what you can do is you can go up to the city and you can ask her mom, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother for her hand in marriage. If it's meant to be, these 3 women will give you the okay. Okay? So I talk to Chaun's mom. Her mom says, yes, you can marry Chaun, right? I go over to her granny's house, to the condo, headquarters, right? That's where her great-grandmother and her granny lived. Both of them are now deceased, rest in peace, okay? I asked Chaun's then, 90-something-year-old great-grandmother and then, 70-something or 70-something, almost 80-year-old grandmother. I asked her, the 2 of them, for her hand in marriage. They give me, permission. So now I go back to Bloomington. Now comes the work, best friends. Now comes the work. Now I'm sitting here thinking, and at the time I didn't have a big circle of friends. I mean, I had some friends, and I guess I could have theoretically bounced the idea of what to do off of them, but nobody that I entrusted was something so important to me, right? So one day I'm at work and I'm talking to my coworker Melanie. She sits in the cubicle kind of across from me. And she's like, girl, things is kind of slow here in the department. What you over there doing? She said, because you're real quiet. Like, what you on the computer doing? So I'm like, girl, I'm looking up all kinds of ideas because I'm going to propose to Chaun. I've been talking to you and, taking the steps. And so I'm telling Melanie, I'm like, girl, I had went and I done asked her family. They done gave me the okay. And I done went and got the ring. I got things lined up. I'm ready to go. So I'm telling her all of these ideas, right? And she was like, well, what do you think? Do you think you want to do a restaurant? Do you think you want to do what's your ideal setting? And so I told her, I said, I want it to be luxurious, but intimate. And I don't know. And I said, I'm a musical person and music evokes emotion. So in my mind, I want somebody singing or I want music involved. I just don't know how, right? So she was like, oh, that's cool. So I take a couple of days and I kind of just toss around different ideas. I ponder different ideas on ways to propose to Chaun. So I start to get online and I'm looking at hotels in downtown Chicago. Now, for whatever reason, I knew in my mind, girl, there's nothing in Bloomington, Illinois, besides the college and State Farm, okay? There's no fancy hotels. There's no places where you would want to go and you would think you would have a wild proposal. So I'm looking at all these different hotels and restaurants and ideas in downtown Chicago. So don't throw fruit at the screen because what I'm going to tell you next is going to make you be like, oh. Now, this was before this person got into politics. This was just somebody who was a businessman. This was somebody who was just, just had a reality show on national TV. The Trump Hotel was one of the top rated hotels that popped up at that time, right? It was a newer property. It was the who's who of luxury hotels in Chicago. Perfect ratings. So in my mind, I say, okay, well, let's book a suite. We're going to book the largest suite or one of the biggest suites in the Trump Hotel. So I start to do research. This amazing suite pops up. TVs in the bathroom, in the mirrors, in the glass, doorbell, full kitchen, overlooking the lake. I mean, at the top of the skyscraper, at the top of the building, I'm talking about fully anything that you could imagine. Fireplace, full living room, full bedroom. I mean, anything that you could imagine that would be inside of a presidential suite was inside of this presidential suite. several $1,000s, right? So in my mind, I'm scratching my head and I was like, okay, this is it, right? So I booked the suite. So I'm telling Melanie days later, I'm like, okay, I got the suite. I could figure out a good restaurant. And I could figure out, maybe like car service or something. Now, back then, best friends, Uber Black, these sort of things really wasn't around. Or if it was, we didn't really know about it. So I ended up renting a limo, right? I ended up renting a limousine. So I rented the best and fanciest limousine at the time. I told Chaun, I said, I want you to follow my instructions. And I want you to, plan for us to go to Chicago in a week or two. We're going to be there for the weekend. I need you to pack certain things, but you can't ask a lot of questions. So as the days grew closer, the details of the proposal started to become more clear for me. So I'm telling Melanie, I said, okay, I got the hotel, I got the ring, I have certain details in line, but there's some things that I feel like are missing. We got the car. I said, let's do the signature room. Let's do the signature room in the John Hancock building for dinner. So I booked that. And so I'm like, okay, let's do, we could do dessert there. Maybe they have great dessert. I don't know. Right. And I said in my mind, I'm like, I know that the restaurant overlooks, Lake Michigan. You can get a table right, by the window. It's on the, I think 95th floor. I was like, it's overlooking Lake Michigan. And so in my mind, I was like, it's the ambiance is nice, but I don't know if I want to propose in a restaurant because maybe it's loud or, whatever, right? So in my mind, I'm like, I definitely want to do it at the suite that we're going to be staying at. I just don't want it to just be a situation where we go to dinner and then we get back and we're tired and I get down on one knee. That, that's not that romantic for me. So I'm telling Melanie, I'm like, I really want to incorporate music. I just don't know how. So she was like, well, are you thinking like hiring a singer or like, what are your thoughts? And I told her, I said, the sexiest instrument to me is the saxophone. And it's ironic now we have a son that plays the saxophone. But I told her, I said, the sexiest, most intelligent instrument to me is the saxophone. It's something about the sound of a saxophone. And I said, for me, the piano / keyboard is something about those two things. And so I told her, I said, Kelly Price, He Proposed, is an amazing song. And so I said that, maybe some Brian McKnight, I'm naming artists like I could see it, right? And so she said, well, I have a suggestion, friend. She said, call a couple of the colleges in Chicago that have very good music departments and see if there are any students that would like to be hired for the proposal where you could pay them, because they're college students, they will probably do it for little or nothing. Have them dress in all black or dress a certain kind of way so that it's uniform. And she was like, I'm looking at the pictures of the suite. She said, it might be a good idea, friend, to just have them like set up right there by the fireplace. And I said, ooh. So best friends, that's what I did. I'm emailing all week, talking to department chairs, department heads, all this. They end up referring me to a couple of guys. I end up talking to them, hiring them, telling them, this is what I need you to do. I need you to send me a couple samples of you playing, all of this just to make sure that what I want and what I see, you're in alignment with it. I had never met them. They had never met me. I put a lot of faith and a lot of trust in this process, right? This was all before social media became big. It wasn't no, I'm going to send you a link to me playing on social media. It wasn't nothing like that, right? So Here comes the day of the proposal. Everything goes over perfect. I put Chaun in the car. She's got her backpack. I got my backpack. I drop her off at her mom's house. I tell her, Chaun, I'm coming back to get you at X amount of time, right? Just be ready. Don't ask me any questions. We're going to dinner. You know that. But just be dressed, be ready. And then we're gonna move forward with our day. After dropping Chaun off, I go check in at the hotel, get everything set up. I went to prepare a flower arrangement. I wanted to hand do it. I wanted to do everything. I picked out all the flowers for the flower arrangement. I worked with the florist. She helped me assemble everything. I wanted everything to be personally done by me or touched by me in some capacity. So when I pick Chaun up, I present her with this big, huge bouquet of flowers. I showed up at the door. She's dressed. She's ready. Her little sisters are looking. They're like, oh my God, I know what's finna happen next, right? They had that look like, oh my God, I know exactly what's finna happen next. They look outside. They see the limo. Now, keep in mind, her family lived at the time on like 79th and I'm not sure what the other street was, but it's off of 79. It's not far from like 79th and Jeffrey, somewhere over there. So we in the hood. So usually you see a limo coming through. It's either graduation time or somebody died. It's the family car for the funeral. You don't see people, in the middle of the summertime, jumping in and out of limousines. So I pick her up in the limousine. I present her with a bouquet of flowers, right? She's crying. She's emotional. I tell her, I said, okay, Chaun, we got a car downstairs. I'm not going to drive tonight, but just trust the process. We got a car downstairs. It's going to take us everywhere we need to go. I'm going to show you a good time. So she was like, well, do I need my stuff? Like, do I leave my stuff here? I said, you can leave your stuff here, no problem, So Chaun comes downstairs. We get in the car. Now, I've made a playlist. This is back in the day. This is before you had your music on your phone. This ain't that kind of situation. We still listening to CDs back then. So I had designed a whole playlist. I called the playlist The Question. And I still have the playlist on my computer. So I designed a whole CD called The Question. All of the songs on the playlist was Will You Marry Me type songs, right? Jagged Edge, Kelly Price, He Proposed. It was Maxwell, different songs leading up to pretty much let's get married type of concept, right? So we get to the restaurant. I take that back. We didn't go to the restaurant first. We went to the hotel first. I believe we went to the hotel first. Chaun's gonna kill me if I get this wrong. I believe we went to the hotel first. And the reason why I say I think we went to the hotel first is because I knew I was going to be nervous, and I was a ball of nerves, and I wanted to do it and get it over with. So we went to the hotel first. When we walk we get ready to get out the car, right? So we arrive at the hotel. Everybody from the doorman to the gentleman that helps you get on the elevator upstairs to everybody knew who I was. So they're like, welcome back. Good to see you. They're calling me by my name. Good to see you. Good to see you, Miss Johnson. Welcome back. Good to see you. So Chaun is like, girl, how do these people know you? How do these people know who you are? And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. So they're giving us white glove service from start to finish, right? So we get upstairs. And just before we walk in the room, I told Chaun there was a chair right by the elevator. I said, babe, I'll be right back. Stay right here for just a couple of minutes. Let me go check on something in the room, and I'll be right back. And she was like, why are we at this hotel? And I told her, I said, well, we're going to have dinner here. So I just need to check on something. So I go check to make sure the musicians are in place. I check to make sure the rose petals are spread all around the room, just so, all of the things. I check to make sure the drapes are open for the full length mirror, the full length window that overlooked the city. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, right? So everything is perfect. I tell the musicians, you're going to hear me when I put the key in the door. When you hear that click and I open the door, you start playing instantly, okay? So I go get Chaun, and that's exactly what happened. I put the key in the door, we walk through the door, she just starts crying. They start playing. And so they start playing all this love music. And I grab her by the hand, she's crying. I grab her by the hand and I sit her on the couch. And just like I'm sitting here looking at you guys and I'm talking to you guys, we sat for a full concert for the better part of like 45 minutes to an hour. I had the ring tucked in the couch cushion. And I waited for the perfect time. And they got ready to play He Proposed. And I got down on one knee and I asked Chaun for her hand in marriage. I said, before we continue with the rest of our night, I just have one question for you. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? And she looked at me and she just cried. And she said, yeah. And of course they kept playing and all of this. And she looked at them and she was like, y'all knew you guys were in on this. And of course they were like, yeah, duh. But they kept playing or whatever. And we sat and we enjoyed the concert. And the sun was going down in downtown Chicago, and we watched the sunset. They're standing in front of the fireplace and they just playing away and this whole thing. And so immediately after they got through playing, they left. We go back downstairs, we get in our limo and we go to dinner. And we enjoy each other for dinner. We looking at the menu and I was like, girl, this menu is bougie. And I want some real dessert. She was like, me too. Like, we not there yet. Like, they had little, they had the little real highfalutin stuff. And I said, girl, no. I said, what's a cheesecake factory downstairs on the lower level in this building? I said, on our way back to the hotel, let's run by the cheesecake factory and just pop in and get some cheesecake. And she was like, that's what I'm talking about. So we go downstairs after we eat dinner. Girl, we go downstairs and we get some cheesecake. So we take our cheesecake and we go back. We went back to Chaun's mom's house, of course, to get her stuff. And then we go back to the hotel for the rest of the night. But that was our little proposal story. And it's so crazy because when you're in the moment, you don't necessarily know how many things could go wrong. One little thing could have threw everything off. We talking about two college kids who agreed to play for us. Anything could have came up. They could have been late. They could have overslept. They could have decided at the last minute they didn't want to do it. Anything could have came up. Oh, and I don't even think I mentioned it on me telling this story this time around, because I've told the story before. So some of you guys have said that you've heard the story before. But what I forgot to mention was when they were coming into the hotel, the hotel management stopped them and said, we can't allow you upstairs with musical equipment because you may disturb the other guests. So I had to talk to 3 different levels of managers right before the proposal because they didn't want to let the musicians upstairs. I had to explain to them, look, I booked this whole thing just for a proposal. It's going to be in the middle of the day. It's not going to disturb anybody, thus and so. They literally had to override the rules and stuff that they had for their establishment just to allow me to do it. That could have completely went left. So it's one of those things where when you look back, you see God's hand on different parts of your life, And I just remember being in my early 20s and when all of this was happening, or maybe mid-20s by now. So I'm in my mid-20s by now, and all of these different things are happening. And I just knew I wanted to make that moment extremely special to her. I know for many women, especially feminine women, as a little girl, you look forward to the day you're going to get married. You look forward to your proposal. You think of all the different things that could happen and the ways that a person could do it and all these different things. And I wanted it to be memorable. I wanted her to look back and tell that story and be proud of how I asked for her hand in marriage. I also didn't take lightly the responsibility of saying, you can't put the cart before the horse. If you're asking her to leave and cleave, you got to first go to her family and ask them to allow you to come into her life in that capacity. And to be honest, best friends, if I would have got a no from her mom, if I would have got a no from her grandmother, if I would have got a no from her great-grandmother, then I would have asked, why did I get a no? And I would have tried to work to correct those areas of myself. But I took the responsibility of them saying yes and them passing me Chaun's hand. I took that very seriously. And so that was the start of the next level of our journey. And it's interesting because as I look back, she was a young girl who hadn't seen a lot of evidence of marriage. And so we were entering into something that we thought we knew all about, but I don't know if we did. And in many ways, so was I. But that was one of the most beautiful moments of our relationship. And it was just the innocence of it all. I wish there was video, like live stream video. I wish there was like a video that I could go back and watch. We have a couple of pictures, and I may share the pictures. I may post the pictures from that day, that moment, and then the next day. I specifically remember there's a picture of Chaun. Girl, Chaun got on her thick trifocals, bifocals, or whatever she had on then. You know how the ladies take their contacts out and then they put on their house glasses or whatever, and she had on her comfortable clothes, her jogging pants and her t-shirt the next day, because we were just going to the city for another weekend kind of thing. She didn't know what she was going to be getting into. So she had on her comfortable clothes, and I remember, before checkout, she was kind of just laying in the floor, kind of just relaxing or whatever in front of the fireplace. And I remember saying, turn around, and then me taking a picture of her. So I do still have that picture. I'm going to see if I can find that picture to share with you guys. Then also the picture of me. I remember having a picture of me the night of the proposal. And I just remember me sitting in front of the fireplace. But, it's one of those things where you look back, and when you look back at these pictures, you kind of smile. I kind of smile because I had no idea what was to come thereafter. Look at all of the stuff that has happened over the years. I didn't know that those two kids from college would, go on to start a business. I didn't know that those two kids from college would go on to have twins. There's so many different things. God has taken us so many different places. And that's the beautiful thing about life. You don't know what you don't know. And you can only make decisions based on what you do know. But I really feel like that was one of the highs. We talk about highs and lows. That was literally one of the highs of our journey together over the past 20 years. But stay tuned, because when you see us back again on this couch, we're going to tell you what happened after the proposal. Have a good night.